Hey everybody, this is Larry Little.
And I'm Melissa Jackson.
And you're listening to Relationships, those little shifts in your relationships that can make a big difference, Melissa.
They sure can. The little shifts that impact and help change the dynamic of the relationship.
I love talking about relationships. And speaking of relationships, there's a relationship that we share and that Robin even shares, our producer, that we all are a part of, and it's a family type relationship. As we are recording this, we are right in the beginning of the March Madness
War Eagle
basketball tournament. And if you're listening, we all have on our orange and blue.
How did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. What a coincidence, because we are playing today the very first game. The Auburn Tigers that we love are playing as a lot of other teams, all right? They're all starting today and this weekend, this week and this weekend. It's going to be fun. I love this time of year.
It is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Okay,
to get through today.
So we all did this little bracket thing that I sent out, right? First of all, who did you pick to win?
Well, I mean, who do you think I picked to win?
Just checking, making sure. War Eagle.
Yeah. I mean, really, do you have to ask that question?
Well, here's my thing. See, I did like 3 brackets, right? And I tried to do them, using different things like my gut instinct, but for some reason, every time Auburn came out the winner, I don't understand it. Every time I got three brackets. 3 Auburns, right? You have how many? 2 brackets?
I have 2.
And
both times.
Yeah.
Both times. Yeah.
So then there's Robin. Robin did 4 brackets. Our producer, in case you're wondering and listening, who is Robin? Robin is the one that makes all this happen.
Very logical.
Very She's a camel. She had 4 different perspectives. She did one with her head, one with her heart, one with AI. I think you did AI, and then just the stats. Yeah, she did one with stats and kind of went through. So she had, Robin, how many different winners did you have? 4. See, she did 4 different winners.
4 different. Do you remember one of those that she picked? Do you remember one? She shared this with us, and one. Do you remember one? One was probably from her heart, and you remember that one?
Who was it?
Auburn was the heart.
She's saying Auburn was the heart.
Okay. I remember something about a mascot or something.
I forgot about that. She did pick one based on the mascot that blinky, whatever. What is it? It's I'm about to get in trouble. I need to be careful.
Be very careful.
It's Bucky. She's telling me Bucky. I couldn't get it. Wisconsin. The Wisconsin mascot she loves. So Wisconsin, did they win? Did you pick them to go all the way through, Robin? No, they got beat somewhere. They Final 4, and anyway, everybody's different. Everybody sees the world differently, and everybody sees the basketball tournament differently. But we're gonna have a lot of fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun to see what happens with our brackets. And so, as everybody else that has done a bracket, it's just fun. It's fun to hear why they choose what team, and how's that gonna play out. So I hope you guys are checking each other. I know you are going to be doing that through the games and seeing how your bracket.
Oh man, yeah.
What does it look like? How do you?
War Eagle.
What do you do with it?
All right, let's go. We have some questions to answer, don't we?
We do. Let's talk about some questions. So thank you. You guys are sending in questions about personalities and are mad. This is 25 years. Really excited about where we're headed. New book, new profile, new icons. So thank you for these questions, and want to ask 2 of them today. One of them I think is really such an insightful question and makes you really think and ponder. So we want to pick your brain on that.
Right.
And it is, can your personality change? Thinking over time, situations, and what makes it change?
It's a great question.
Can it, and if so, what makes it change?
Yeah, it's a great question. The short answer to that is yes. My wife married back in the 80s. She married this parrot turtle kind of person, and so she's a high camel and with some lion thrown in. So as the years have progressed, and as we've started companies, as we develop, become entrepreneurs and those kinds of things, my personality has shifted over to the lion quadrant. So many times, she'll say to me, what happened to my parrot? What happened to that
That's a good
parrot
question.
turtle? What happened to it? And the answer is, it changed because of the environment. It changed. So yes, your personality certainly can shift and change based on the environment. If you experience a chronic illness, if you experience a tragedy, if you experience trauma, if you experience a relationship where you need there's a void in a personality trait, many times that will be filled by someone that really that's not their primary even, but they shift to that. The environment at work, many times you can say. So there are a lot of things that go into our temperament and a lot of things that go into our personality. So the answer is yes, it can change. And what causes it to change? Environment, things that happen to us, things that we go through.
And Larry, thank you for that answer. And I really like how you threw the 80s in there too. You had to get a good time frame. 80s were really good. They were really good.
Yes,
okay, so here's the second question. So the second question is, who is the personality that you clash with the most? Who is the personality type that you clash with the most?
So, right now I'm in this lion and at times parrot, lion, parrot kind of personality. And of course I still have turtle that I need. I need my turtle time. But the one that I clash with the most is the one that I didn't mention, and that's the camel. And maybe that's because I don't have a lot of that naturally, but I struggle with the camel because I'm generally more action oriented. Camel's a analytical thinker, processor, logical, black and white rule follower. As we've discussed, rule following is not one of my greatest strengths in life. So I am a risk taker, and the camel is not necessarily a risk taker. So honestly, the one I struggle with most is camel. But I'm going to turn the question on you and ask, what do you struggle with? Which one?
As you were talking, I was thinking about the DNA too, and how the quadrant, diagonal to yours is the one that you struggle with. And so, I think for me, it's probably the diagonal 2 when I'm in lion mode. So that would be the turtle. When the turtle is so slow to respond, or so in thinking and processing and pondering and doing what they do best at, really internalizing that and mulling over it, and really thinking about the different scenarios and people, and then I'm like, let's have some action. Let's just have some action. So and it is, that can be such a weakness of mine, and so that diagonal quadrant, it
little
can,
frustrating.
Yeah, it can create some clashes.
Yeah,
That's what we're talking about today, right? We're talking about conflict and how to deal with conflict, and what is conflict, and how does it take place really, and what do we do with it with our personalities. And so I want to dig in and get some nuggets.
Yeah, and let me say this before we move off that question really quickly. The fact, and you mentioned it, you touched on it, the fact that quadrant, that diagonal, means that that camel has strengths that are my weaknesses, and that turtle has strengths that are your weaknesses. So conflict, learning to work through some of that conflict and finding the good in that, finding the strength in that is important as we talk about conflict today.
It is, because we need each other.
Right.
It takes a village to be strong and to learn and grow, and especially to understand personalities. And so we want to talk about that today and look at, how do different personalities deal with the conflict, what is the conflict, and then kind of dive in a little deeper and talk about some specific areas of conflict that are natural, that take place consistently in relationships, so we can normalize some of that.
Good, let's do it. Well, here's the first thing about conflict, I think, Melissa, is conflict is inevitable. Everybody's going to have, and conflict, I remember going and trying to learn about conflict because I had the mindset that conflict was bad. Years ago, conflict is bad. And
I think that's a normal mindset.
I think it is in
general.
relationships and in teams and companies. There were teams that were avoidant. They didn't like it when I would talk about having conflict is essential for a healthy team. It's also essential for a healthy relationship, I would say. If you don't know how to navigate, in fact, if you don't have healthy conflict in a relationship, I would say that it's a toxic relationship.
Well, you're going to have it. It's either going to be external and you're going to be aware of it because it's so external, or it's going to be internal.
That's right.
And sometimes you're not aware of it, but things are going on internally and there's conflict there. Like you said, conflict is inevitable.
Yeah, and it's good. It brings different perspective. It brings diversity. It brings newness and freshness of thought.
Yeah.
Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean that's a bad thing.
Yeah, but you do have to realize, what is your mindset on conflict? What does your history tell you? What are past relationships tell you? What did you learn?
Yeah.
Growing up, what were those things that really kind of defined conflict for you, so you can look at it head on and figure out, what do you want that definition to be in your life at this point, this season? So let's talk about and look at the personalities and in general. Those that kind of can deal with conflict, those that can navigate conflict, are kind of like a little bit of that because, there's some passion there, there's some emotion there. Talk to me about those types of people and individuals. How do you address, what do you do with that? How do you address that conflict?
And there, if you take a step back and think about conflict, there are two types of personalities that like to deal with conflict from an extroverted perspective. They are verbal. They like to talk it out. They like to go out. And that's the lion and the parrot. Those two love that. So they're verbal processors, verbal conflict. They externalize conflict. Internalizing conflict is what the turtle and the camel generally do. They're introverted more, so therefore they take conflict and hold it in. They're not as verbal. They don't really default to talking about the conflict, right? So we have to understand that. That's important as we break down conflict, that we have natural tendencies. We have to be aware. So you have to be aware of, what is my natural tendency? What is good about that? What is unhealthy about that? And be willing to shift in our vernacular to create a healthy conflict resolution with whoever you're talking to. So it really depends on who you're talking to is how you deal with conflict.
A lot of times we think conflict in relationship to other people. And so, we think about, I can't have conflict because of the other person, because of maybe who they are and how they're wired. I can't have conflict with this type of person because I am going to see all the conflict and I'm not going to be able to talk through the situation because it's going to be so, prevalent in how they look and the words they're saying and those types of things. And so, it sets you up to not even step into that zone because of that person's
avoid it, right? Avoid it because I don't understand it or because they're not going to respond. Basically, it's because I haven't learned and to have healthy conflict, how to navigate healthy conflict, and so I think we can have some things to think about in that regard. As you kind of break that down for a minute, and we talk about. We'll start with our parents for a minute. That, remember, extrovert people, they love people, so they really have this disdain for discomfort and conflict because they're people pleasers. The parents want to please. They want everybody to be happy, right? Everybody, but they do have and can have a temper, and when they feel someone has been hurt or they're an advocate, when they feel that someone has been taken advantage of or whatever, they can or they feel like themselves and I've been taken advantage. Then they can have anger, they can have conflict, and it's mostly all verbal. It's all in the moment. It's they don't have a great ability to control what they're thinking at times, as we'll talk about the lines in a minute. So parents in conflict, it may take a bit to get them there, but they are very verbal, very emotional, very histrionic at times. They tend to over emote in times of conflict.
So you're going to see a lot of emotion.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of emotion.
Their face, their body language, how they're responding. Okay.
Yep. And that can be intimidating for those that are introverted, right? Or it can send a signal of we're going to war for the lion who is, you know. So we have to know though, no, that's just part of the parrot. That's how the parrot deals with conflict in their life. They emote, you know, and they need to talk, they need to talk, they need to talk, they need to talk. So understanding that helps us to better navigate that personality. We'll talk about how to navigate that in just a minute. The lion, they're very direct, so they're going in conflict, they're going to battle. The lion has one thing in their mind about, I'm going to win. And they strive to win.
Or I'm going to be heard, right?
Winning is being heard. You're going to hear my opinion, you know. And so they don't think a lot about their words. They're very direct. They may be a bit emotional, but it's more passion, more, you know, you need to hear me. I have definite, and generally they come down on right or wrong, black and white. That's kind of how they operate, but it's external. I'm going to tell you what I think. Very direct, very, very, people would say rude even at times with their conflict, and they can come across as very angry. So then you go over to your camels for a minute, and they too are very black and white, but they're gonna be more analytical. And in conflict, they want to fact find. In conflict, they want to prove their why you're wrong, and I'm going to prove it by giving you data or by fact finding what you say to make sure you said it exactly right. They're going to spin on things for a while. In conflict, though, they go back to very logical, very direct. It's not emotional with them generally. They're just going to tell you what's right and wrong in their mind, and they're going to know why in their mind it's right and wrong. And they're going to be critical. They look for ways, and many times because they have this perfectionist thought process going on, they can pick you apart in terms of not being exact, not following the rules exactly, or not being doing exactly what you said to the letter. They're going to hold you to the letter of the law. So then that leads us over to the tranquil turtle. Tranquil turtles really hate conflict on all levels. They do not like conflict. So they're going to internalize it. They're going to let it process inside. They're going to think about it. They're going to not use their words in conflict. They generally shut down. Most of the time, the more angry a turtle is, the more quiet she is. The more angry a turtle, the more deeply they're hurt, the more quiet, the more withdrawn. So they're going to disconnect. They may, they may be having deep thoughts, but you wouldn't know it because they're going to be passive. So you got to know that what's going on the outside of the turtle is not what's going on the inside. So you have to have some tools. You have to know how to navigate that conflict. But that's how each of the four deals with conflict.
So let's take the personalities and conflict and let's lay that over some of the most common conflicts that there are. You know, there's a lot of data out there that says these are the common issues that create conflict on a general basis and ongoing. So I want us to walk through this and talk about this and how do we make sure we're dealing with conflict in a healthy way? Because I think some of these might have a tendency to lean towards a certain personality. So I'm going to walk us through 5 here. So the first one is a lack of clarity. That, there's not good communication going on where two people feel clear on what the issue is. They might be misunderstanding each other on truly what is the issue. So a lack of clarity. If you have two introverted people, how does that just kind of mushroom? How does that take place?
Yeah, it's so common, and we think there's clarity, but there's really not. With two introverted people, it happens because they're not using their words, because they're not verbalizing, they're not talking, they can't get to the place where we are talking our way through this problem. They both have strong opinions. They both have a conflict. So many times it just sits and it grows because they're not dealing with it. So there's got to be a way with two introverts. Sometimes we'll talk about this when we talk about how to resolve conflict with turtles. Sometimes the best methodology is to write a letter and use those words, write them down. But in the moment, if you have two introverts, and let's just say two turtles or even a turtle and a camel, they're not good in the moment. They just are not. They need time to think through. So many times the second piece is maybe set a structure. We're going to talk tomorrow at 7:00. Let's you and I talk. Give that turtle time to get ready and get prepared for the. It won't, in the moment conflict generally creates unclarity and miscommunication and things that are unclear, creates a lack of clarity with two introverts.
So to resolve that, you're saying that there needs to be some path forward for conversation, if it's written or setting a time, but something that brings some structure to that. Another here common conflict is misreading nonverbal cues. So, you can think about two extroverted personality individuals, and maybe there's a lot of nonverbal cues, and maybe there's some misreading of that, some, coming up with their own perspective of what that person is saying. How's that handled?
Yeah, here's what happens. Let's say you have two extroverts. Let's say you have a parrot and a lion. The parrot's generally pretty good at reading a room until he gets emotional. And when that emotion takes over, their EQ goes out the door. They're emotional, so they don't read the room.
So they lose their EQ.
They lose their EQ because they're just emoting. Emoting consumes them. The lion is never really good at reading a room. They just they're gonna move forward because they don't want to. They don't care. So there's some. I say they don't care. They don't slow down long enough most of the time to understand what's going on in the other person's mind or heart. So there's all kinds of misreading going on with that. So you have to, number one, you have to make sure you're not in the emotive stage, and number two, you have to slow down and make sure you want to hear. So the extroverts have to slow down, do a self-check. Am I emoting, or am I truly listening? Do I really care about what's going on?
So another one here is preconceived notions, and so stories, get put into someone's thinking. They're creating their own story around the conflict. They're creating their own perspective on what has happened. What personality tends to do that, or do they all? And then, what are some solutions around that?
Yeah, every one of those personalities can do that in a different way. The turtle, because they're processing internally, tells themselves a story. When there's a lack of an ability to communicate truth, we're going to make our truth. And so the turtle will make that up, and the camel may substitute data or what they think to be the truth for what the actual truth is, especially when there are gray areas involved. So every personality, I just gave you a couple of examples, but every personality can build their own story. That's why it's so important to learn how to communicate clearly, because all of us will, in the lack of communication, we will create our truth.
That's really good. Another one here is inadequate listening skills. So someone they're not listening in the conversation. Maybe they're already communicating, they're already giving direct feedback, they're already telling their point of view, so there's not an ability to truly listen to understand the person. It's for responding. So how do you deal with that in conflict?
I remember this, that listening skills, it's not a personality. One personality shouldn't be better than the other. It's not driven on personality, because the turtle, even though they may look like they're listening, they're probably shut down and not listening, even though they're quiet. Just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're listening. So it's about learning, choosing to learn the skill of listening. It's about choosing to learn how to listen. That's a choice. That skill can be developed. That muscle can be grown by practice, by learning good listening skills, by not trying to answer a question, but if you ask it, let them answer without you coming back with your own thought process before they have a chance to respond. It's about slowing down, not having an answer in my mind before you finish what you're saying, but being curious and learning to ask questions from you and truly hear what the response is. And that takes discipline, very honestly. It just takes being understanding what nonverbal skills are. How do you nonverbally listen? How do you verbally be quiet and listen? How do you become a question asker instead of a demand giver? Those kind of things.
The last one here, I think, is kind of a deep thought. And that piece is someone's trigger being triggered. Something is going on inside of them, that the conversation, the conflict, the dynamic has triggered that person. And so they don't have the skill, they don't have the ability in the moment to deal with conflict. So talk about that one.
I think it's really important that we all recognize first our triggers. We have to be self-aware of this is a trigger for me. Maybe I had a past that was hurtful. Maybe something happened traumatically. Whatever it is, that triggered in me. That's what a trigger is. A trigger is a stimuli, something that causes an emotional reaction internally. Could be totally irrational, could be rational. It doesn't matter. It causes an emotion. So we have to recognize our own triggers, and then we have to step away. And if we recognize that, and if you really are in a relationship that's close, you recognize when maybe you have caused a trigger, or when you, through conversation, something has triggered the person you're talking with. So it's important. Recognize, when you have caused a trigger, but really it lies on the person who has those triggers to be self-aware. Hey, that's a trigger for me. I need to step back. Let's continue this later. The wrong thing to do is to push through a trigger, because I have to own my triggers. I have to know how to deal with them. I have to have a process for going back and then coming back and engaging you.
I think there's so much work that can be done around these common conflict areas. And sometimes that may mean, we need to do a course, or we need to read a book, or we need some coaching or counseling, or we need to just slow down and spend some energy on, recognizing and learning how to deal with conflict so our relationships can be stronger.
It's a game changer if you recognize those triggers in your own, think about what is it that triggers that emotion in you. Because once that's triggered, you can't have healthy conflict. Healthy conflict is over. Let me give this to us as we wrap this thing up, because I know we could talk about this all day, and I love this, and it's so good, and hopefully we've helped. But I do want to give just something for each personality, that if you have a relationship with this personality, some things you need to remember. That'd be
Great.
good. Let's start with our parrot. Just remember, parrots are emotive. Give them space to emote. They solve conflict verbally. They need to talk it out, and they need to know at the end of the conflict that you have resolved it and that you still like them. So remember that you care. They care about you way more than the conflict. They want to know, do you care about me? So make sure when you're in conflict with a parrot, let them process it through verbally. Let them emote. And remember, the healthy conflict is we both come and we both are heard. We may agree to disagree, right? It's about resolving, meaning we've been heard, not necessarily getting someone to say, I'll win or you're going to do it my way. So at the end of the conflict with that parrot, make sure you validate them as a person. Hey, you matter. I know we've had a hard day. I know we've had a hard time, but I truly love you, or you really are important. Whatever that is. Use those words. Yeah. Let the parrot have space to emote, and don't take that personally. They're just emoting. For the lion, realize that this is a competition. So you go in and you're going to have to set some boundaries with a lion. If a lion is rude, you have to call them out. Hey, that was rude, and I'm not going to continue this conversation if you are rude, that kind of thing. They respect that. They respect very direct conversation. So if you're in conflict with a lion, be direct. You're not going to hurt their feelings. You're not going to offend them, more than likely. Just be very direct. I don't like that you did this. All right, you did this and I felt this. And I need you to hear me. Slow down and hear me. Tell them what you need. Be very open. They don't have good ability to know what you need or feel unless you use your words. And that's very uncomfortable for some of us, but you've got to do that. So be direct. Tell them what you're experiencing, what you need, and let them own that. And then let them realize when they come back at you, their words are their weapons. So if they cross that line and become overly aggressive or overly rude, you need to call them out on that. And you need to say, I need you to listen. I need you to stop talking and listen. So for the camels, when you're in a conflict with a camel, they need you to hear their details. Let them tell you for the detail of how to make the watch. That's whatever the conflict is. Let them have time to process and have the details, because they want to prove to you that they're competent. The really most important thing in conflict with a camel is for them to know that you believe they're competent. They have the details. They have the facts. Don't be offended at their nitpicking. Don't be offended at their criticism. But say, and the same thing with that lion, these task-driven person, say, I need you now to listen to me, or I need you to understand what I'm feeling over the facts. I need you to hear me. Those kinds of things work with camels. And then our turtle, there needs to be some time. Turtles are not going to enter into They don't think verbally. They need time to process. Many times using a letter, read this letter, and then let's talk about it tomorrow. So you have to be comfortable to sit in silence with that turtle. You need to slow the conversation down and be okay with just being quiet and letting that turtle respond to you when she's ready, when he's ready. And there may not be a lot of words. Slow your thought process down, slow the whole experience down so the turtle can feel like they can be heard in that conflict.
Such valuable wisdom and such good responses to challenge all of us. You know, we all need to make those little shifts in our relationships to be able to have stronger relationships. And it takes dealing with conflict, it takes learning. It's a constant opportunity for us to develop.
You said it just right. You know, I'm still learning and growing, and just because I know all this stuff doesn't mean I get it right? But I'm trying, I'm learning, and our relationships are important, and they're worth the effort, aren't they? They're worth the work that we're putting in. Keep working, keep growing, keep shifting. And speaking of shifting, it's time now to shift, Melissa, to the favorite, the most sought after part of this podcast. You know what it is?
I do. And let's move from conflict to comedy. I love it. Let's do it.
That's so good. So this dad joke is my favorite part. The dad joke. This dad joke is dedicated to our very own Robin. So this is Robin, our producer, because Robin is a sci-fi person. She loves some sci-fi. So we're going to give her this dad joke is for her. Okay, is that all right?
I love it.
All right, here we go. So how many ears does Captain Kirk have? Captain Kirk, see, sci-fi. Yep, Captain Kirk. How many ears does Captain Kirk have? You ready?
Ready.
He has the left ear, the right ear, and the final front ear. Come on, Robin. She's laughing.
She's even shaking her head.
Hey guys, thank you for laughing with us, and thank you for being a part of this Relationships podcast. You are incredibly important to us. We appreciate the questions and the conversation. Please keep that going. Know that we are here because we believe in relationships and we know that takes work, it takes shifting, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to shift in our relationships, little shifts that'll make a big difference. Thank you for making a difference.